Hi, boys and girls. Happy Monday. I'm so glad that you're here with me for our lesson. I cannot believe that we've been online learning for so many days, and I'm so happy that so many of you are still joining us and taking your learning seriously, even though we're learning from home. So if you're joining me for reading skills right now, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it, and I'm proud of you for taking initiative. So, as you know, the last few weeks we've been working really hard to learn some skills about how to read our books and better understand them. And we've been talking about text features. So we talked about character traits, sequence of events, cause and effect, main idea and details, and we talked about story elements to help us with comprehension. And all of these things are super important because they help us to better understand the books that we read. It's not enough just to read the words, but we have to understand what's happening in our story. That's why we read, to get information. So this week we're going to practice this one more time, this last week with a book. And then next week we're going to move on to nonfiction books because I think you're ready. So I want to go over our target, and this is going to be our target for the whole week. We're going to put everything we've learned together. And it says, I can identify text features in a fiction text. So you try to read that with me. Are you ready? Mirror, mirror with words. Okay, repeat after me. I can identify text features in a fiction text. Great. So all these books that we've been reading the last few weeks are fiction books. That means they're make-believe. The stories might be things that could really happen, but they're made up. So the characters aren't real, and we're kind of getting a story about things that happen to them. So today, the text feature that we're going to be focusing on is character traits. And again, the whole week we're talking about text features. That's what we've been doing. But I just worded it a little bit different so you can learn that big word, text features. So character traits is a text feature. Great. So to get us started, I have a picture that I want to share with you. And it's just a picture with a little bit of words, but we're going to use what we can learn from the picture and the message to decide what kind of character the person is in the picture. What are some traits that we would use to describe the character? So I'm going to share my screen with you, and I want you to think about two things. Remember, when we talk about character traits, we talk about what the character looks like on the outside, and I drew some eyes because this is things that we can see just by looking at the pages. We know what the character is like on the inside. But we also have to decide what the character is like on the outside, and we can't see that. We have to think. That's why I drew this thought bubble. So we have to think about the way the character acts, reacts, and behaves. So these are all the things I wrote behind us. Characterization is how does the character look, behave, act, and react. And we do that by thinking about the outside and the inside. So let's try that with my picture, and I'm going to help you through it. So here's my screen. And here's my picture. I know it's a little bit blurry, but I'm going to help you read the words. The girl is sitting there, and she's got her hand on her head, and she's got like this scowled look. She almost looks like she's crying a little bit. And the words say, when your mom says you're too old for an Easter basket. So it looks like she's feeling, how would you describe her feelings? Yeah, maybe sad. And why would she be sad? The words say, when your mom says you're too old for an Easter basket. It sounds like the Easter bunny didn't bring her an Easter basket. And maybe her mom and dad didn't get her a present for Easter. So she's feeling like, this is how she was sitting. She's got like a scrunched up face. She looks like she's crying, and her hands like, oh, this is the worst. Yeah. So when I think about that girl as a character, first I want to think about, what does she look like? So her face was scrunched. It made her look sad. Yeah. So I'm going to write some of these things about her on the outside. The first thing that I want to think about is, who is she as a character? Is she an animal? Is she a person? Yeah, she was a person. And when I think about if she's a kid or a teenager or a grown up, I kind of think like she's about a teenager, an adult. So I'm going to write that for outside. That's what I can see with my eyes. right when I look at the picture. So she is a girl. She's a teenager or an adult. And she was crying. I could see those things. Now, for the inside, it's not things I can see. It's things I have to think about by the way that she acts and reacts. So that's the things that she does. What does she do? And when I read the caption, it said that when her mom says she's too old for an Easter basket. So how does she react to not getting an Easter basket? Let's think about that. How does she react? She's sad. She's crying. Yeah, so I want to think about these things a little bit more. I could write that she's sad on here. I'm going to add that. But I think there's even more colorful words that I could use to describe other than just sad. So I want to think about if she's looking around and she sees everybody else getting Easter baskets and she's not getting one, there's a word that I would use. I would use jealous. Have you heard that word? Jealous means that you wish you had what somebody else did, or you feel jealous over what they're doing or what they have because you don't have the same and you don't get to do the same. So I'm going to write jealous because I think that's how she's feeling a little bit, like, everybody else is getting an Easter basket and now I'm too old. How come? This is not fair. I'm jealous. Yeah. The other word that I was thinking that we might put on here is that maybe she's a little selfish. She thinks that she should have one and it's for her. And maybe she's not thinking about the other people that are younger that need the Easter bunny still. I don't know. You might decide to put that or you might not. It's up to you. It really depends on what you see about the character when you think about them on the inside. How do they behave, act, and react? I guess it might be hard for us to see completely if she's selfish because we don't know how she acts in other situations. So is she maybe not selfish and she bought presents for a lot of other people and she was thinking of them? I guess we would have to know more before I put that there. But I think these two answers are really good to get us started. So I want you to keep this in mind when we read our book today. We're going to be reading a book called Caps for Sale. And when we read Caps for Sale, the main character is a peddler. Can you say peddler? Yeah, so a peddler is somebody who sells things. He tries to sell something to someone else for money. So when we look at the peddler, I want you to think about what does the peddler look like on the outside? We can see that. And then think about how he is on the inside. Okay, let's get started. Remember, we're working on character traits. So I will show you my screen and we're going to read Caps for Sale.
Caps for Sale. A tale of a peddler, some monkeys, and their monkey business. Told and illustrated by Esfir Slobodkina. Once there was a peddler who sold caps, but he was not like an ordinary peddler carrying his wares on his back. He carried them on top of his head. First he had on his own checked cap, then a bunch of gray caps, then a bunch of blue caps, and on the very top, a bunch of red caps. He walked up and down the streets, holding himself very straight, so as not to upset his caps. As he went along, he called, "Caps, caps for sale, 50 cents a cap." One morning, he couldn't sell any caps. He walked up the street, and he walked down the street, calling, "Caps, caps for sale, 50 cents a cap." But nobody wanted any caps that morning. Nobody wanted even a red cap. He began to feel very hungry, but he had no money for lunch. "I think I'll go for a walk in the country," said he, and he walked out of town, slowly, so as not to upset his caps. He walked for a long time, until he came to a great big tree. "That's a nice place for a rest," thought he, and he sat down very slowly under the tree and leaned back little by little against the tree trunk so as not to disturb the caps on his head.
All right, right now I want you to take a look at this picture and think about, what does the peddler look like? What type of character is it? Is it a person? Is it an animal? What does the character wear? How would you describe the peddler? Go ahead and think about that. Let's keep watching.
Then he put up his hand to feel if they were straight. First his own checked cap, then the gray caps, then the brown caps, then the blue caps, then the red caps on the very top. They were all there, so he went to sleep. He slept for a long time. When he woke up, he felt refreshed and rested, but before standing up, he felt with his hand to make sure his caps were in the right place. All he felt was his own checked cap. He looked to the right of him. No caps. He looked to the left of him. No caps. He looked to the back of him. No caps. He looked behind the tree. No caps. Then he looked up into the tree. And what do you think he saw? On every branch sat a monkey. On every monkey was a gray or a brown or a blue or a red cap. The peddler looked at the monkeys. The monkeys looked at the peddler. He didn't know what to do. Finally, he spoke to them. "You monkeys, you," he said, shaking a finger at them. "You give me back my caps." But the monkeys only shook their fingers back at him and said, "Tss, tss, tss." This made the peddler angry, so he shook both hands at them and said, "You monkeys, you give me back my caps." But the monkeys only shook both their hands back at him and said, "Tss, tss, tss." Now he felt quite angry.
Okay, my friends, I want you to think about what's happening right now. Is the peddler patient with the monkeys? Because right now, this is how he's reacting. So we have to think about what that tells us about him as a character. Is he patient? Okay. As we keep going, let's see if he is going to give up because his plan isn't working, or if he's going to keep trying and be persistent.
He stamped his foot and he said, "You monkeys, you better give me back my caps." But the monkeys only stamped their feet back at him and said, "Tss, tss, tss." At last he became so angry that he pulled off his own cap, threw it on the ground, and began to walk away. But then each monkey pulled off his cap, and all the gray caps, and all the brown caps, and all the blue caps, and all the red caps came flying down out of the tree. So the peddler picked up his caps and put them back on his head. First his own checked cap, then the gray caps, then the brown caps, then the red caps on the very top. And slowly, he walked back to town calling, "Caps, caps for sale, 50 cents a cap." The end.
Sorry, friends, I just wanted to make sure that video wasn't playing in the background on us. So that was Caps for Sale. And I like that story because it's just so interesting. That story's been around for a really long time, but there's a lot that we can learn from listening to that story, and we can still analyze it just like we do with all of our other books to decide the text features and identify them. So today, your job while you were listening was to think about the peddler, the guy who's selling the hats, and think about what he looks like on the outside and on the inside. How does he behave, act, and react? Those are all important things that we do when we're thinking about a character. So I want to get you started with this, but then I want you to finish in Google Classroom based on what you saw in the book, and maybe by thinking about answering a couple questions. So let's get started on just the outside. And I started a new chart for him, and I put the peddler in the middle. When you get on Google Classroom, there'll be a picture of him here. But we still want to do the outside and the inside. So on the outside, when I look at the peddler, I noticed what kind of character he was. Was he an animal? Is the peddler one of the monkeys? No, what is the peddler? He's a man. That's right, man. Okay, I'm going to start with that, but you can add more. I want you to think about, how does he dress? What does he wear? I noticed that he wore pants. And he wore a suit jacket. And he wore some other things on his head. He wore some other things on his head. And he also had something on his face. So when you go to Google Classroom today, see if you can maybe think about those things. What's on his head and what's on his face? You can add that to my list in Google Classroom. Now, on the inside, I want you to try to do this all by yourself. We've been practicing this a ton. There's a couple things that I want you to think about when you think of the peddler. So I'm going to pull up our assignment in Google Classroom so you can see it, so that we can start to think about what we might put there. So on Google Classroom, when you click your assignment, you are going to see this page here. And it's just like we've been working. The character we're talking about is the peddler, and we're going to talk about the outside and the inside. So what you do is you click right by the dot, and then you can type on your keyboard using the letters. So on the outside, I'm going to write, he's a man. And man. And he is wearing pants. And pants. Okay. On the inside, there's some questions I want you to think about. And here are the questions I want you to ask yourself. So let me put them right here on the side. Questions to think about. The first question I want you to think about is the peddler happy with the monkey? How does he act with the monkeys? Is he happy? Is he kind? Is the peddler patient? Let's think about that. And did the peddler give up? So when you think about those questions, those will answer how the peddler acts and reacts. Your answer to that tells you some information about him, and then you can write things about his inside. How is he as a person? So today you're going to complete this chart here for both outside and inside with your own notes, and then you're going to submit it to me so I can see your work, okay? So please remember, my friends, that this is really important. Our Google Classroom work tells me that you've been watching the videos, that you're paying attention, and that you know what I'm talking about. So it's super important that you try your best on those, okay? Remember, today and this whole week, we're going to work on this target. I can identify text features in a fiction text. Today, the text feature we're identifying is character traits. So good luck. Go ahead and get started identifying the peddler's character traits. And I can't wait to see you again tomorrow. Goodbye, first graders.